Hi class, my name is William Wolfgang. I'm an Army sailor stationed in Hawaii, and I'm giving my presentation today on the book Warlock by Oakley Hall. So to begin with the summary, the book Warlock is a novel by Oakley Hall written in 1958. It covers the town Warlock, which is being antagonized by a gang that is ran by a man named Abe McQuone. And the town, which is not able to get help from the state or county due to its geographical location and the fact that the McQuone gang is just that ferocious, they end up coming together and creating a committee known as the Citizens Committee, made up of like the richest people of the town, basically. And what they do is they band together to try and enlist a kind of marshal that may be able to save the town, since they aren't able to hire their own sheriff, basically. And the person they end up hiring is a hero from Texas named Clay Blaisdell. And he is basically a fictional representation of the real-life hero, Wyatt Earp, who is best known for his actions during Tombstone. Now, Blaisdell does accept their offer, and he ends up heading to town with his best friend, Tom Morgan. And they're actually pursued by another character named Kate Dollar, who's a former prostitute. And the reason for her following them will be revealed later on in the book. Another important character to mention is a man named Bud Gannon. Now, he's already in Warlock, and he used to be a member of the McQuone gang. His brother, Billy Gannon, is still a member. And so because of his past ties with that gang, a lot of the townsfolk do not like him. But he actually returned for a specific reason, and that is to kind of redeem himself for his past actions. So he goes there trying to be a deputy, or at least trying to oppose the McQuone gang. He's not there just to be there. He's there to actively oppose that gang. Now, of course, not only are the townsfolk scared of Bud because of his past ties, but the McQuone gang themselves are also kind of uneasy because of this decision he's made, because not only has he left them, but now he's actively going against them. And it wasn't one of those things where it's like a huge, like big, I'm leaving you guys and you guys are awful. He just kind of left, and it was silent. And so it kind of leaves a little bit of mystery for both the townsfolk and the gang. So once Clay and Tom are able to kind of settle themselves within Warlock, Bud tries to kind of approach them and become a deputy, and he kind of gets in there, but the townsfolk are still not very happy with him. And Clay and Tom's presence alone threaten McQuane's kind of existence, right? And so they go and wreak havoc like they have been doing, but on a more personal front, even going as far as to try to hurt Clay personally. And what ends up happening is Clay bans them from the town, and of course they trespass, and they even go as far as to lay an ambush for Clay, trying to kill him. Now, Clay narrowly escapes that encounter, only able to escape it because of Tom. And I neglected to mention this before, but Tom is actually a fictional representation of Doc Holliday, as is Clay to Wyatt Earp. Now, although Clay is able to get away, he ends up killing Billy. And what's important to mention about this is not only is Billy Bud Gannon's brother, who is trying to be a deputy and be a good person, but although that Clay is there to kind of like settle things and make sure McQuone goes away, he's not a law officer. He's a vigilante. He's a paid vigilante. And so the legal impunity that a sheriff would have at that time doesn't really stand with Clay. And so it brings up a lot of issues, because now this kid, Billy, is murdered. And so to stop any more fighting, Billy turns himself into the next town over on the charge of murder. And he ends up going through a trial process. And while he's gone, Warlock starts to kind of self-implode. At this time, the miners end up forming a union, and then the Citizens Committee tries to kind of make themselves their own county. They try to ask the state if they can become their own county so that they can get their own sheriff who does have legal impunity in a way. So Clay is eventually acquitted of all of his charges. However, this is when Kate Dollar comes in. She's actually mad at Clay and Tom because previously in Texas, they had orchestrated her fiance's murder. And so she's now trying to get Bud on her side and the rest of the townsfolk to kill Clay. And to not go too deep into Kate's subplot, I'm just going to go straight into the ending, which what ends up happening is, and this is a spoiler, but it's important enough to the theme of the book and eventually the movie that I feel I need to mention it. So what ends up happening is Tom is stricken with jealousy and almost like grief for Clay, because not only has Clay kind of obviously been friends with Bud now, but Clay is washed up, and so is Tom in a sense. And he's not the hero he used to be. He's already had this problem with Billy where he killed that kid, and now he's kind of grappling with the fact that, like, is he a hero? Is he washed? Is there such thing as a hero? And stuff like that. And so he's not really feared anymore. And whether that's a good or bad thing is up for the reader to decide. But that brings a lot of turmoil within Clay and Tom. And so Tom, in a drunken, belligerent kind of attack on the town, he ends up shooting up the place, and he ends up harming some people and kind of just being belligerent, basically, which forces Clay to kill him. So, I'll get back to that. So after Clay kills his best friend, it's another instance where he's not a law officer. He's not allowed to do that. I mean, even law officers shouldn't be just killing people, right? So what ends up happening is Bud, who's basically the last deputy there, ends up having to tell Clay he has to leave town or he will be arrested. And that's how the book ends. And so what's very interesting about that is that the ending isn't a huge gunfight. Clay kills his best friend in a sense that, like, you would put down a whimpering dog, or a wounded dog, I should say. It's not climactic, and it's not thematic. It's not even cool. It's sad. And then after that, Clay has to leave because he's disgraced. And so it's a very rough ending, but it's a very good ending. And so that leads me into the theme of the book and then therefore the film. So the book has themes of heroism and moral ambiguity, and also the future of these kind of people, these cowboys, these outlaws, these vigilantes. As you may know, in actual real life, vigilantism was a huge problem in the West during this time. A lot of people were taking actions to their own hands, and that was never looked at in a good light. That was never a good thing. A lot of those people who murdered were arrested for good or bad reasons. Murder is murder. And so that's where this moral ambiguity comes in with Clay, who was once held as a hero and is now, he turned himself in for killing Billy. Like, that's the situation this guy's in. And so we're going from a place where outlaws are running rampant and vigilantism is the only way to get them to calm down, to now everyone has to be held to the law. And this is right at that turn of the century where the Industrial Revolution is right around the corner and cowboys are on the decline. And so how I think this would apply to a film is that the Western genre, much like the Western era, is on the decline and has been on the decline for a long time. A lot of Westerns aren't being made like they were back then. And it's a little scary to think about that an entire genre could just dissipate like this. And the same goes for things like film itself, the industry, right? We went from film cameras to digital, and now we have CGI, and now we have AI, and now it keeps going and going, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but it does leave to question what's next and what is next for the things that we've already had, like film. And so to uphold the themes of the book, I would obviously like to maintain the plot points and the story and the themes of the book, but I also like to elevate those themes to apply to the film as a medium itself, which is why I think it's important to take this book and make it a film, because I think it could do a double metaphor where it's about Western decline and heroism, but it's also about industry decline and the Western genre decline. So for visual style, I would very much like to film this on VistaVision. And there's a very real reason for that. There's two of them. One, for nostalgia, because VistaVision was the trademark of the 60s and 70s. and it's not much used anymore. I mean, it was used for this film, One Battle After Another, which just won Best Picture, but this is like one in like a million films that came out in the past decade, right? And so it's not very much used anymore, and I think using VistaVision could help pop the film and make it stand out, and especially in today's industry. So not only is it a nostalgia thing, but it's also a way for it to be more standalone-ish. I want the colors to pop just in general, but also I think for it to do that, it would also be such a difference from the industry right now that it could end up being a real like hallmark for a lot of people who want to come see this movie. Now, films like The Good, the Bad, the Ugly and Once Upon a Time in the West weren't shot on VistaVision, and a lot of Westerns weren't shot on VistaVision. But again, the point is nostalgia for the 60s and 70s in general, not just Westerns. And so these were shot on Technoscope, which still gave it that pop and made it look as beautiful as it does, which I think VistaVision would still be able to accomplish. Now, as for tone, I want the movie to pop in its set pieces and its costume design and just in general and its color specifically. But for tone, I want it to be very dark and gritty. A good example of that would be Chinatown. Now, Chinatown is a movie that also came around in the 60s, and it's a neo-noir film that has an awful ending. I won't spoil it, but for those who have seen this movie, it does not have an ending that is good for the stomach, to say the least. It's a very good ending, it's a very good movie, but it definitely doesn't make you feel good to watch it, which in itself is a good experience, in my opinion. And I think that the ending of Warlock could be the same. It's very uneventful. I wouldn't say uneventful, anticlimactic would be a better word. And the things that happen at the end are just sad. They're bad things. Clay kills his best friend and then is disgraced, and he's supposed to be the main protagonist. And I think that's very similar to the feeling you get when you finish this movie. Now, for genre, very similarly to what I mentioned in tone, I want it to be a lot like Chinatown in the sense that it's dark and gritty. So I would say the genre would be probably neo-noir, which I know doesn't sound like it goes with a Western, and honestly, it doesn't. But it wouldn't be a neo-noir in style. It would be a neo-noir pretty much in tone. And I know I've said that a couple times, but that's basically as far as it'll go. It'll be mostly a Western. It'll be a drama, and an action, of course. But it'll definitely have the, and I guess thriller would be a better word for it than neo-noir. But it would have that vibe for sure. And for casting, there's only one person I could think would be perfect for Clay Blaisdell, and that would be Kurt Russell. As many people know, he played Wyatt Earp in a film called Tombstone, and he was much younger in that film. Of course, he's in his 70s now, his late 70s, and so that does bring kind of an issue. However, Clay is an older person at this point. He's done with the hero stuff, and so with the magic of filmmaking, I think we could age down Kurt Russell just a little bit to get him into his 60s or even 50s, and that would be perfect for Clay. And also, just thematically, Kurt would go from playing Wyatt Earp during Tombstone, where Clay is supposed to get this heroic status, and now he's playing him washed up and old. So I think that would fit very well. The only other person I could think of for Clay would be Brad Pitt, and the only reason for that is he played Jesse James in The Assassination of Jesse James, which is a sort of Western, and it was amazing. Everything Brad Pitt does is amazing, but that's a really good example. And also, of recent time, he's played old washed-up people in F1 and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, so it's certainly within his realm of possibility. He's also younger than Kurt Russell, I'm pretty sure, so that would fit very well. The only other character I would like to put an actor to would be Bud Gannon, because he kind of has the opposite character arc of Clay Blaisdell, and he's an extremely important character. Whereas Clay goes from hero to kind of disgraced, Bud goes from disgraced outlaw to hero almost, although it's very ambiguous. It's definitely not black and white, but that's kind of the idea. And so we'd have to get someone younger, and then I just feel like someone, I don't know, in my opinion, Alan Edrickson, or Eldrick, I think that's how you say his name, would be a perfect match. He plays Han Solo in Solo, but more importantly to me, he plays an actor who plays a cowboy in Hail Caesar, and he is tremendous. He has a very, I don't know, like, I guess childish demeanor to him. Not in like an infant kind of way, but like in a younger kind of person who's kind of getting their footing. And I think that would work very well. And to contrast that, he plays a very serious role in Oppenheimer. Although it's a very small role, it's still like it really hit with me. And so I think that would work perfectly for a character like Bud Gannon. Okay, so for market potential, I think it's a no-brainer that this film should be seen in theaters. Not necessarily IMAX, although that would elevate the experience, but theaters in general. Like, that's the purpose of this film, is to show how important things like film and the Western genre and theaters are, and how they're dissipating in a way. And so if it did have to go to a streaming service and there was no choice, which is very likely for our future, I would say Apple TV would probably be the best bet, because they have a good track record with films like F1 and Killers of the Flower Moon, which, although it didn't get a physical release until a couple days ago, it did get a theatrical run, and it was treated very well market-wise. Like, it had a lot of it was marketed very well. Same with F1. F1 got a physical release really quickly too. So I don't think Apple TV would kind of keep it in streaming hell forever, like Netflix with Knives Out, Frankenstein, and The Killer. So I think Apple TV would be better than a lot of other streaming services in that case. Now, there's a portion here for comparative analysis, and then the final pitch. And I think I'm just going to combine those two, because I've already compared this film to a lot of other things as I explained the tone and just basically everything else so far. So I'm going to kind of combine this. The two things I would compare this film to, once again, is Once Upon a Time in the West and Chinatown. Chinatown for tonality, and then Once Upon a Time in the West for visual style and look and all that kind of stuff. So what I mean to achieve with this film is kind of like the feeling that, like, maybe a person on their deathbed would feel right before they die. Like that last burst of energy before finally, like, letting go. This is a kind of celebration of the past, and yes, it's kind of like a fear of the future, but it's also like a step into the future, because a lot of the story elements would be more modern than, say, something that was filmed in the 60s. The look is supposed to be 60s. The shell of the film is supposed to be 60s. It's supposed to be an old man shell. But the plot, the story, the dialogue is supposed to be modern and new. And it's almost like a bird hatching out of an egg. Or, like I said before, the last burst of energy before someone would die. And I think that would resonate very well with audiences, because it's clear that there's a yearning for original films today. Project Hail Mary is a perfect example. It came out only 6 days ago, and it's already surpassed $100 million in the box office domestically, not globally, domestically. And that's a wild success for an original film in a industry that is primarily made up of remakes and sequels and just remakes and sequels, basically. I mean, they're making a live-action Moana, and that movie came out, 6 years ago? Maybe a little bit longer, not a decade ago or more. And so this film could be a kind of breath of fresh air. Seek Help is another great example of an original film. And even more so, it's a great example because it's a horror film, which historically does not do well in the box office. But it remained on the top of the box office for 14 weeks straight, domestically, which is really good, especially for a horror film. And so it's obvious that audiences are yearning for more, and Warlock would give that, because not only would it be an original film, but it would be a commentary on what's going on in the industry today. And so that's why I think Warlock would work as an adaptation. I hope you enjoyed my video. Again, my name is William Wolfgang. Thank you.